thank you all for the opportunity to participate. I am very excited to be with this esteemed group, and and a big fan of Oracle's and eye innovation. I think it's an amazing program that you all have put together. So I've been tasked with the discussion of the merits of IOLs in presbyopia correction, and this is kind of fun because everybody that we're going to be sharing thoughts with today are not only close friends, but I just respect them like no other. So this is going to be just kind of fun to kind of go through. Here are my financial disclosures, and I'm going to do this from a sort of a broader based view. I'm not going to be just only talking about IOLs, which many of us are familiar with. It's really more of the decision-making process and why more and more we are choosing IOLs as our procedure of choice for presbyopia. And this is a super hot topic with over 4.2 billion presbyopic eyes worldwide in the year 2020. There's a lot of opportunity to help people. And the age-old question is, do we do this on the cornea or do we do this on the lens? Historically, there was more patient acceptance with the corneal procedures, considered less invasive, performed in a laser suite and less expensive. But with the lens approach, this addresses the source of the problem. It can improve visual quality, it's a permanent solution, and it can be therapeutic in certain instances as well. Some of you may be familiar with these three letters, DLS, or the dysfunctional lens syndrome. This was an attempt to characterize and systematically the aging stages of the human crystalline lens that allows us to make good decisions, not only to educate our patients, but to help create a framework with how we approach the different stages and proposed stages of the aging lens. And this has now interestingly been accepted as by the American Academy of Ophthalmology as a clinical entity, and is being increasingly used worldwide in the terms of in this context. And so we think of the aging stages really in three ways: primarily presbyopia, hard aberrations, and lens opacities, and we've staged accordingly as we age through time. And this is my esteemed colleague, and lucky for me, my wife wrote an important paper in the year 2007 that actually characterized the hard aberrations of the age-related cataract, and we've been looking at this earlier in the stages of dysfunction because this does occur earlier in life. You'll see these pictograms in the ophthalmic throwaway journals on looking at the different stages of the aging lenses as we've described it. And it's just really interesting when we think about other subspecialties like the surgical correction of glaucoma. Just imagine how many different ways we have to address glaucoma these days. But look at this. I mean, this really warrants consideration for a standalone subspecialty for the or subspecialty just for the surgical management of presbyopia. There's so many different options. So we're going to be focused, no pun intended, in the bottom right corner, really looking at lens-based procedures. And over the last decade, we've studied the aging changes with objective measurements, looking at anywhere from anything like densitometry to point spread functions and retinal image, assessing objectively optical quality from the aging lens, and have published on this. And now this is a hot topic now with the emerging technologies for presbyopia drops too, looking at, and this is my eye here. Luckily I see well for distance, but as you can see, I'm wearing reading glasses now. And so, this is somewhere where I might be very interested in a pharmacologic intervention. But more and more, we're looking at these early presbyopes, not so much incipient, but manifest. And really, where historically we would think more about a corneal-based solution, we're really thinking more about a lens-based solution earlier on in life. Once we get to the second stage defined by lens opacities, and you can see the retinal image quality worsening, it really is sort of a no-brainer to do a lens-based procedure from our perspective, because you're not just fixing the emetropia, you're improving image quality, not to mention the progressive nature of this disorder. And I think what has really been the big ticket item for us over the last few years, changing our practice patterns, shifting not only from stage 2 for IOL intervention, but to stage 1 for IOL intervention, was that of the AOS thesis from my former mentor, my current mentor, but former fellowship mentor, Dan Dury, when he looked at with contact lenses and what amount of ametropia and anisometropia, that is, can induce a drop in stereopsis. And it turns out as low as 0.75 diopters creates a statistically significant drop in stereopsis. So I want that to marinate, and I want that to sink in, because it's hard to maintain that with a corneal-based solution. And so when we, not only now are we talking about things like objective image quality, here's a ray tracing device that has a dysfunctional lens index built in, where we can actually separate out with some attempt internal aberrations from whole eye aberrations. There's a new Pentacam that we have that also allows us to do this with a integrated wavefront sensor. And so here we have somebody in their 50s coming, late 50s for LASIK, but we look and see, hey, their corneal image quality looks great, but we've got some internal aberrations that we probably want to address. You can't do that with a corneal-based solution. So, and a number of years ago, and this pilot study actually was done in, I think, 2013 or 2014. We just looked at a series prospectively of refractive lens exchange patients and looked at densitometry on the left and ocular scatter index on the right prospectively to see, can we improve these objective surrogate measurements of image quality by doing lens replacement and relative to healthy LASIK controls. And we found that we absolutely were improving image quality beyond refraction and refractive correction. This was image quality correction by doing lens-based procedures. So we look at we've kind of crafted a management algorithm that we've tailored to in our clinics, in our standard operating procedures, where again, we might look at this with early, maybe a pharmacologic solution. For somebody with low myopia, we might consider just doing a LASIK in one eye. But more and more, we're really looking at a lens-based procedure. And again, this is just kind of a glimpse of how we do it in our clinic. More and more, we're doing this at the lens. Historically, it was for high hyperopes we were doing lenses, then moderate myopes we were doing lenses, then low myopes, then plano presbyopes. But ladies and gentlemen, we're now actually looking at this more and more, even for low myopes earlier in life. And that was a real a mind bender. We just weren't even thinking about this 5 years ago. But why are we doing this? Well, it addresses presbyopia at the source. It improves image quality where lens opacities exist. It obviates the need for future cataract surgery. It may be useful where corneal refractive procedures are not indicated. And it preserves or provides stereopsis, like you heard me say. And what really changed our pattern of thinking is that we believe maintenance of stereopsis increases patient satisfaction. More and more, our refractive lens patients were just happier than our monovision LASIK patients. And we're formally studying this now, but it has completely changed our practice patterns. These procedures take the same amount of time, refractive lens exchange and LASIK. They both have their relative risks and benefits. And this is something that has increasingly spread in terms of patient interest, where historically it was the hardest discussion we had. Now, where patients would say, what, you want to take my lens out and run out the door? Now we actually, in some cases, have to talk them out of lens replacement and into LASIK if we feel it's safer, because this has become, there's so much interest for this. And not only that, but because our patient satisfaction is higher, and therefore the word of mouth is much higher. So our practice has really embraced this. We've studied it. We've studied it for a long time objectively, and we feel like we have a scientific basis where, given the appropriate informed consent and the appropriate discussion, that we feel that this is what is best for our patients in many cases. It's not that we wouldn't do a corneal-based procedure on these patients. We have a low threshold for refractive corneal enhancements if we need to do this, and we set the stage for that in advance. But in the future, we're working on things like refractive index shape changing that is not ready for prime time, but may not be off in the distant future, where we can do enhancements on these IOLs directly in the clinic with femtosecond lasers. So in summary, the dysfunctional lens syndrome is just a proposed way to characterize the aging changes of the human crystalline lens, and RLE should be considered for presbyopia treatment. It treats the source of the problem, it improves quality of vision, and it maintains stereopsis, which we believe improves patient satisfaction, and careful risks and benefits should be considered. And I just want to personally thank Dr. John Marshall, who we have as a permanent panelist in Oracles, for offering this quote to our profession. And John, I use this on just about every lecture I give. Why should the cornea suffer for crimes of the lens? And with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
George, it was really amazing presentation. Thank you so much. We will discuss your presentation after Dr. John Chang presentation, which is about corneal approach for presbyopia solution. John Chang is from Hong Kong. At the moment, time difference between Hong Kong and Europe and US. We will present you all from recorded version. And we will listen now, John Chang. Thank you so much. I hope he can hear us later.
Hello, this is John Chang from Hong Kong. I'm going to share with you today my experience with corneal wavefront surgery against aberration-free. I have no financial interest related to this talk. Why is wavefront treatment necessary? Well, refractive surgery now is highly accurate, but visual quality and night vision is still not perfect. Now, aberrations, as you know, are mainly from the cornea, and the customized ablation, the wavefront cornea surgery, corrects either cornea aberrations or total aberrations. The cornea aberrations remain constant throughout life, whereas total aberrations can change over time because of vitreous opacities and cataracts. And therefore, greater importance have been attached to the treatment of cornea aberrations. Now, there are two profiles. The more regular one, which is aberration-free, and now the more newer one called the corneal wavefront surgery. Now, both profiles can overcome the dysphotopsia produced by the induced spherical aberration in the LASIK correction. Aberration-free does the sphere cylinder and the induced spherical aberration, and corneal wavefront does that too, as well as the preoperative cornea higher order aberration. So it gives you better visual outcomes and theoretically better night vision, and there's also obviously because of reduction of high order aberration. Now, both are safe and effective in virgin eyes. There are studies showing this. In these studies, mostly either correct all the higher order aberration, but that consumes a lot of tissue, or there are higher order aberration that minimize the depth of volume just to save tissue, and some select and treat the more significant higher order aberrations. And then there are other higher order aberrations based on surgeon's decision without explicit description in the literature. So, as you know, corneal irregularities are converted to Zernike polynomials here like a pyramid, and can be treated completely, or we can actually selectively treat each individual higher order aberration. Now, cornea wavefront treatment has already been done, as I mentioned, and they have been reported to be highly effective. But as I said, they are more tissue consuming. So in order to save tissue, we treat only the clinically significant ones. Now, higher order aberrations are considered clinically significant when the individual higher order aberration items are more than 0.2 microns or roughly 0.25 diopters. Okay, anything less than that is considered noise and repeatability based on experience of the surgeon. However, studies have shown that some aberrations were good and could be retained without compromising visual quality. So if you treat all of them, it may not necessarily be good. So the Applegate did a study and found that higher order aberrations to 2 radial orders apart, when they're 2 each order, you can see that 2, 3, 4, but the 2 radials apart with the same sign, -2, -2, they actually combine to increase vision. So if you remove both of them, you actually decrease the vision. Now, the higher order aberrations that have the same radial order, on the same radial order, okay, 4, 4, 4, radial order 4, they actually combine to worsen vision. So you should remove all of them. So you should look at these and selectively, rather than either remove half of it or all of it, because you don't necessarily improve the vision, and also you're consuming more tissue. Now, as coma and spherical aberration have the highest impact on visual acuity, we have decided to correct only the spherical aberration in the primary coma when they reach a clinically significant relevant level that is more than 0.25D. In fact, all these times when doing it, we really haven't seen anything that have been clinically significant, that is more than 0.25 in the aberrations, except the spherical aberration and the comas. Now, we did a retrospective analysis using the Amaris 1050 laser, and we treated the eye with more higher order aberration with the corneal wavefront and the other eye with aberration free. Okay, so if they are comparable, you already actually achieve success because we're treating the worst eye with corneal wavefront. So if it's better, then you know definitely it works. So we, as I said, we treated the eye with the primary coma or spherical aberration that was worse with corneal wavefront, and only higher order aberrations that are in the orange color, which is 0.25D, that is above the noise level that is clinically significant, or if it's red, it's 0.5D. So that's very significant clinically. Okay, the ones that have no color means we don't actually treat them. We're only treating the ones that have actually orange or the red. So we're selectively treating, and obviously we make sure they're not the same radial order, or they're not the 2 radial orders apart. If they are 2 radials orders apart, we actually leave them behind. So this is how we do. And both pre-op and post-op, we measure the corneal higher order aberration. The surgeon will select the best optical zone for each patient, making sure it's beyond the dim light pupil size. The pre-op selection was based on the optical zone treated, and the analysis is set at 6 millimeters. We did the usual UDVA, CDVA, and test manifest refraction, and total of 34 patients, 68 eyes, with an average of 88 follow-up. We included myopia or myopic astigmatism. We intended a slight overcorrection with our patients, and age under 37, and spherical equivalent less than -6.5, and astigmatism less than 3 diopters, and pre-op BCVA has to be better than 20/20. So we excluded severe dry eyes, patients with epithelial problems, or shorter follow-up than 3 months. So this is the result here. You can see there's a slight overcorrection, the sphere, intentional overcorrection, and comparing the, this is corneal wavefront, this is aberration free. You can see that it's a little bit more closer to 0.25, okay? And the cylinder, very close, no clinical difference, but the aberration free is slightly statistically significantly better. Now, as in terms of accuracy, the post-op refraction, the corneal wavefront is 100% within half a diopter of astigmatism, and with the aberration-free 94% within half a diopter. All patients 100% within 3/4 of a diopter. And aberration-free does a little bit better, a little bit more myopic shift, whereas the corneal wavefront tends to be a little bit more hyperopic result. And with uncorrected distance vision, 52 versus 64%, corneal wavefront aberration-free in 2015, but 100% 2020 with the corneal wavefront versus 97%. Corrected distance vision, this is the best way to assess if the treatment works. You can see that the corneal wavefront is stronger than the aberration-free, but both 100% 2020. So daytime vision, as you can see, is excellent. What about nighttime vision? As we know, we're targeting for better daytime and better nighttime vision. We looked at the same patients and we analyzed, and within this group, 21 were treated with spherical aberration, 18 with horizontal coma, and 20 with vertical coma. And if you look at this, the corneal wavefront minus means it's reduced. So this is reduced. Corneal wavefront is better than before surgery, whereas with aberration-free, this is plus, so it's actually worse. Okay, and with statistically significant difference. Okay, but at the minus AF minus CW, that is aberration-free minus CW, if the difference is more than 0.2, then it's clinically significant. So this is not really clinically significant different. With the horizontal coma, again, reduction in the horizontal coma in the corneal wavefront eyes, an increase in aberration-free with statistically significant difference in the two, but not clinically significant different. And in this, the vertical coma, again, reduced, increased, statistically significant difference, but this time 0.22 more than 0.2. So this is clinically significant. The patient should feel an improvement in the vertical coma. Okay, so now the change in high order aberration is really just to repeat: reduced in horizontal and spherical aberration in vertical coma, increased in the corneal wavefront, and this is again is total RMS. Okay, in the group spherical aberration, corneal wavefront less, so each group is less, and total high order aberration in corneal wavefront is reduced. This is comparing the EX500, the Contura, which is corneal wavefront surgery also, with two other studies using the Schwinn doing the corneal wavefront, trans-PRK, and this is our study that is LASIK corneal wavefront surgery. And in terms of 2015, we're only 53% versus over 60% in the other eyes, in the other studies, but we're 100% 2020 versus, well, 93, 98, 99. So really comparable. In the safety, we did not lose any vision at all. With the Contura EX500, 0.43% lost 2 lines or more, and 1 line loss is really not clinically significant. So safety is very, very good. Okay, no lines lost. And in terms of spherical equivalent, within half a diopter, as you know, we overcorrect our patients a little bit, and we have significantly more higher myopes, and so it's a little less. But within cylinder, within half a diopter, 92, 95, 97 versus 80%, and the Allegretto. In terms of reduction, we have reduction in spherical aberration. Okay, this is increase in D2 studies, and a horizontal coma and vertical coma is reduced versus the other studies. In summary, corneal wavefront effectively reduces spherical aberration, vertical coma, and horizontal coma that are more than 0.2 diopters as compared to aberration-free. It had clinically significant reduces vertical coma and statistically significant reduction in spherical aberration, horizontal coma, and vertical coma. Corneal wavefront yields good and comparable visual outcomes compared with aberration-free, but corneal wavefront have higher percentage receiving BCVA in 2015, 82% versus 74%. And as you know, the worst eye was treated with corneal wavefront, and we achieved 100% 2020, and none of the eyes lost not even 1 line. So this method is very safe. Thank you.
What are you doing with patients who are coming to you for laser vision correction, who are, plus 40, moving towards the presbyopic age range? Are you looking to do some form of monovision
yes.
in these eyes? Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So what's your standard approach there?
Yeah, in our study, it's really for younger patients. As I mentioned, our patients, this group is all under 38. this is probably what we do. Once they're over 38, I'm, from 38 to 40, I back off in one eye. So I tend to undertreat one eye, but I don't intentionally do monovision. In patients who are over 40, then I would recommend monovision. Over 45, I actually do some presbyopia.
Okay. And what with presbyopia, what is your standard treatment approach?
I adjust the spherical aberration. Actually, I use the EX500 to do that. It's kind of similar to, it's kind of like a laser blended vision. So I increase the spherical aberration, or what we call the Q value, especially in the non-dominant eye. So as well as some monovision, I increase the spherical aberration. For that eye, it has an increased depth of focus. So the non-dominant eye, I'm targeting usually about 150 diopters. These are for the presbyopes, so that they can see the computer and they can see the near. With the distance eye, it depends. If the patient needs very good, distance vision, then I just do a standard, aberration-free type treatment. If they're mostly near, then I would consider doing that eye with the increased depth of focus as well, Q adjustment.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Chang, for joining us on Oracles for this edition.
Thank you.
So we listened a very nice presentation from John Chang. Now I would like to ask panelists their comments, their questions. Is there any comment or question?
Yeah, I have a question for George, because I'm curious, very curious about your new reading glasses. You mentioned you're looking forward to getting presbyopia drops. So my question to you is, why would you like presbyopia drops where you wake up in the morning, you cannot see your watch, then you're putting in a drop, you have to wait 30 minutes until the drops get effective, then they get effective over a period of about 2 hours, and then they deteriorate their effectiveness. And if you look at the studies, you're basically just gaining 3 lines of near vision, where the control, which was the placebo, already gained 2 lines in vision. So, to my opinion, are we just putting water into ice? And why would you want that?
It's a great question, Michael. And I had the pleasure of serving as the lead investigator for the Allergan presbyopia drop, which will be the first to market if it's FDA approved, which we anticipate it should be. So that's not exactly the data that came out of that study. It actually was a 3-line difference relative to control. And this is something that had an onset within an hour. And so, but as you know, better than most people, there are at least 4 to 5 different drops on the market. So I think what you mentioned is a real realistic kind of hybrid analysis maybe of all drops coming that with available or pilot data. So not all drops are created equal. First, some have different mechanisms of action. And the way that we see this is a bridging technology. So to your point, I'll be as excited about putting drops in as I am putting glasses on, frankly, meaning not excited. And so what I'm really excited about is getting my eye fixed here at some point. And that's the real question that if we just went around and did a roundtable on, well, what would you have done and when? That's kind of the real fun discussion. So I don't anticipate that being my long-term solution for me nor anybody else. It's a gateway solution for when it first happens to have an alternative through the day to putting on reading glasses on and off through the day. And the top line data suggests that this should be safe and effective in a way that can really bring help with quality of life. The PRO data, this all looks great. So it's, and nothing else, it's going to raise awareness too about what presbyopia is And what's next when you get sick of taking drops? Or if drops aren't for you and glasses aren't for you, then, you know, it comes back into this realm of discussion.
As a long-term presbyope, I've never quite seen the point of constricting my pupils so that I can read the number plate of the car that I smash into. And so I have great difficulty understanding the logic of pupillary constriction. We all know that in any optical system, the smaller the aperture, the better the focus and definition, etc. But I'm with Michael. I find this really very difficult forward movement. Commercially, it's terrific because you sell a lot of drops and a lot of people dribble the drops down their cheeks, etc. But as a long-term presbyope, I think these are just brilliant. I've got really good distance vision. I don't lose them. I don't spill food in them. And it's there when I need them. I'd like to sort of just go a little bit further into, and frankly, I'm really interested in the development in lenses over the years. What has slightly frightened me is with the degree of development in different companies with different focal zones and different principles in terms of giving me click stops for vision. So I lose my accommodatory, beautiful evolutionary system, and I end up with a series of click stops in terms of the different lenses. And I have to say that I haven't yet seen any of that technology that I would find attractive. So at the moment, you know, I'm 2 years off 80. When I need my cataract procedure, I think at the moment I'm still going for a straight sphere with the blue blocker. And I just wondered, you know, where you are in relation to the huge technology and which one you would advise me to have if you could convince me.
John, let me start with your first comments, which are really important ones. You know, that was a big concern for the FDA about what are we giving up with a small aperture principle and pupil constriction. And Wiley-Chambers went so far as to require, for the first time, not only showing lines of near improvement, but also distance preservation. So the bar was set extraordinarily high for an eye drop. It was unbelievable. And actually, the top line data that came out met all the criteria where the distance vision was actually preserved, and they also hit their near vision marks as well. And it's kind of interesting because an emerging concept came out where it wasn't just constriction, it was modulation. So it's not just make it as small as possible. It actually still allows for movement with light in different lighting conditions, given the right concentration. And that was a little bit of an aha moment. We're always learning things as we go through that. And so, you know, those are really valuable comments that were shared by the US FDA that set an extraordinarily high bar that was actually met, interestingly. So that can give us some confidence moving forward beyond just commercial opportunities, and that this, you know, may be something to help with the early presbyopes. And, you know, I couldn't agree more with your comments about the shortcomings of the optics and having so many options. And up until 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I would actually have said sort of the same thing about my own eyes. And as a result, we didn't do as much refractive lens exchange because of the optical shortcomings. And keeping in mind, you know, as the representative US delegate on this panel, we're way more hamstrung than you all are. I mean, remember, you have the luxury of being in the free world where you've got access to real amazing cutting edge technology. We're 10 years behind here. So enter extended depth of focus optics. That was a game changer in the US because it did create a broader depth of focus curve, but it left us lackluster on real reading, correction. So what we started doing, John, was in our clinic, we started combining extended depth of focus in the dominant eye with trifocality in the non-dominant eye. So we got as many click stops as possible, plus that additional near reading benefit. And then we covered the in-between with an EDOF. And that was just a personal concept that always made sense to me. First we had EDOF, so we got our experience with that, realized we weren't hitting the mark for reading. Then we got trifocality much later than you all did, but realized that it was unforgiving in most eyes and had its shortcomings, as you mentioned. So we just took the approach out of the gate that we just combined, and believe it or not, I offer that solution in about 95% of my lens implants, both refractive lens exchange and cataract, and have done quite well. Not to say it's the final solution by any means. We definitely have to enhance more trifocals than ever. And there's some quality of vision issues with trifocality.
Supi, maybe I know you do both worlds, cornea and lens. So maybe my first question is, where's your cutoff? What is your criteria of moving to lens versus laser or other cornea procedure? And the second question is, why do you think having a free world of more options of lenses helps or doesn't help to do better service?
I like the last question. Greater choice isn't always helping you because none of the IOLs, even in the free world, is perfect. That's the dilemma we are still in. So I totally agree with George that if we had perfect IOLs, then at the age of 45, when presbyopia sets on, we should exchange the presbyopic lens. But as no IOL is perfect yet, I'm quite hesitant to do that. And as George has pointed out in his excellent talk, there are different devices now that help us guide us through this decision process in theory only, because I find them to be not repeatable enough. So I find with the HD analyzer or with the Pentacam or with the ACE or whatsoever, that sometimes young patients have a worse index than obvious cataract lenses. That's my problem. I don't know how you have addressed this, George. The second thing is, as all the lenses are not perfect, they are, and I quote John Marshall again, they are offering static solutions to a dynamic problem. And that's our biggest disadvantage, even in the free world. So I tend to stay on the laser side as long as possible. But if there are opacities in the lens, or if the patient is asking for a whole range of vision correction from far to near, then I do multifocal. But in Germany, patients are more interested in perfect distance, and they tend to accept reading glasses more easily. So I prefer the laser approach, blended vision, because it can be corrected with spectacles if excellent night vision is required, and it can be enhanced in the future in 5 or 10 years, because laser vision correction has demonstrated to be extremely safe and effective right now, but and there's not much improvement to be expected. But I think the IOLs are going to be better in the future, and if we can do laser vision correction today, wait until the cataract develops, and then place the latest technology IOL into the eye, And I think that's why John has waited almost 80 years now.
And a solution for the special light sources for the pharmaceutical companies, they could adjust the pupil size with these things.